What will business and governance look like in 15 years' time, given this environment we're in now? And how do we prepare? Liz, can I start with you?
Thank you, Heather, and good afternoon. Look, as a director, we are expected to predict the future, but we don't know what it's going to be like in 15 years' time. You know, it's always hard. But what I can tell you is what we are thinking about when we think about the future. I mean, we think of just what's happened, you know, a global pandemic or a biological event. These are all extreme circumstances that we have to think about and we have to have discussions about. But if the other items that we're thinking about is information technology and how will it affect business models and consumer behaviour. That will bring opportunity. For example, if we think of e-sport, the same sports code that are played online with computer sports players that have coaches train, play just as they do in real sport, with audience watching online or that come to a specially designed sports arena to see e-sport athletes in action sitting on a screen. And of course, if you think of the US, the Lakers e-sport, it brings a different target audience and more revenue than just marketing and merchandisers. But on the other side, there's risk. Cyber warfare will just get worse. The other thing we think about is, you know, the future of politics. Are our political systems able to govern in a digital economy? What will the effects of shifts in demographics and global demographic power be? You know, today we see that social inclusion seems to be an unfulfilled promise, and social cohesion is weakening. So some citizens are disenchanted, and political systems, you know, they will have trouble adapting and responding to these new demands. So, and then that brings us on to say, well, what's our role and purpose of business and society? So we think about these things, we have the discussion, and, you know, that will influence where we are in 15 years' time.
Oh, that's wonderful. Thank you for that, Liz. Teresa, you've come from a variety of backgrounds as well as the corporate world and now with startups. So what are your thoughts on where we'll look like in 15 years?
Thanks, Heather, and good evening, everyone. Pamarie. Look, the one thing that won't change is business will continue to be about the intersection of people and money. But both of those two things, as they apply to governance, might well change. First of all, the people front. We're past the point now where diversity and inclusion isn't nice to do in the real mahi's done. It's now core. It's a core leadership skill now. It'll be even more core in 15 years' time. And so governance, the governors, if you like, are going to be more diverse. It's going to be a better gender balance. There's going to be a better ethnicity balance, reflecting the natural population of Aotearoa New Zealand, or definitely heading in that direction. But it might be a more fundamental shift than that. A more fundamental shift in part enabled by bringing more voices to the table, but also by the passion and the focus of the younger generation. Traditionally, money has been seen as a transaction. You pay something with money and you get something in return. But increasingly, I think, you know, current energy, money's energy, and it works best in a circular way. Actually, thinking of the economy as a circular thing, and the current ESG imperative is only going to increase the focus on all organisations, whether they're in the public sector, to take an intergenerational focus, which is something that Indigenous wisdom has been, you know, known forever, and to actually think about the circularity. Right now, we think of sustainability as being products that do no harm. That's not going to cut it. There are already 2 or 3 hugely leading entrepreneurial companies in New Zealand, Emma Lewisham Cosmetics and skincare and better packaging, which are making products out of pollution. So they're not just doing a do no harm, they're actually going to make the moana, the whenua, better than how they found it. We're going to see more and more of that, the circular nature of all being in relationship to each other, people, but also other sentient beings and the environment. There's going to be a profound shift in the next 15 years.
That sounds absolutely exciting, actually. So Miriam, your thoughts?
Well, I think as Liz already alluded, it does feel like crystal ball gazing because it's really hard to predict what's going to happen, particularly given how uncertain everything is now and in the future. Let me focus more just on the governance rather than the business aspect. And look, I share Teresa's view. I think what we can expect is there'll be more diversity, and it's not just in gender, ethnicity, it's going to be diversity in thought and skill sets. I think the median age of boards will be younger, and they need to be. I think we need younger people on boards, and I think the older lawyers, accountants, chief executives will be less de rigueur in 15 years' time. Tech skills is probably going to be essential. And then I think there'll be a lot more focus on social license. One of the things that I've been really struck by in some of the government review work I do is the growing lack of trust in institutions and business. So I think there will be more focus on social license, sustainability, te ao Māori. So it is going to be a different world. How different is hard to say. I think what's perhaps more important is how do we prepare? And I guess I think it's about continuing to be curious, to grow our skill sets, and to actually be really resilient, agile, able to adapt quickly.
Oh, thank you for that. And I suppose we're getting a bit of a theme coming on here. Tanya, your thoughts?
Tēnā koe Heather, o tira tēnā koutou katoa e mātakitaki mai nei tēnei Paul, ahi Paul. Thank you for the question, and I guess I'm going to echo a lot of what others have already said, but I expect that we are continuing our trend to become a more aware, more mature, ethically treaty-based nation, and expanding our knowledge, and that evolves our relationships and our partnerships and our tolerance and understanding, and broadens our outlooks and our horizons. We still will need to keep well abreast of the fast pace of technology and trends, while also being well grounded in the fundamentals around our environment and the sustainability of our world. So I expect to see more diverse but integrated approaches to governance continuing to develop. When I say integrated approaches, I mean the coalescing of social and environmental and cultural and business priorities, rather than them being, separate or one dominating the other. I think we'll come up with a much more integrated approach. We'll still, of course, have our increasing focus on compliance and safety and regulations, and so it will continue to be a serious, maybe an even more serious business, being a governor in 15 years' time. But I think if we're thinking about 15 years ahead, we have to look at the youth of today and what they're dealing with. And so they will be influenced by this pandemic, they will be influenced by climate change, and they will use those inspirations to transform our world and to transform business. So, I think it's really good. We're heading in good directions, and I look forward to that. That'll be a time when I'm sunsetting out of it, but there'll be some really neat people coming through into it. Kia ora.
Kia ora, thank you for that. And finally, Parakawhia, your views.
Tēnā koe Heather, tēnā hoki koutou katoa. A lot has already been said, so I'm trying to think of something different. So what I did do, however, was I posed this question of my 21, 22-year-old who's in her final year of law at Waikato University and is really starting out on her career. And a couple of things she did say to me, slightly different to what's been shared so far. She talked a lot about values. She talked a lot about, obviously, people, but because also her discussion also leant on mental well-being and the well-being of her generation now, and how much more that has come and become more visible. And she certainly didn't see herself necessarily going into a governance role in the future, but she did say to me, Mum, I don't think I want to be doing or or doing what you do in the way that you do it. And I do believe that me and my peers are wanting to do things differently. So as Tania touched on, that kind of license, climate change is really important to them. And so I think you will start seeing a lot more of that coming through and into the leadership roles. I think as leaders, we should be embracing that diversity. We need to embrace it now. And I know all of us on this live stream do that, and we talked about it, but I think we need to obviously be much more deliberate about it too, and bring forward and identify those leaders of the future, because now is the time to support them and start to shape how they will be when they step into some of the roles that we all have currently. So nothing more to add except to say it's wonderful to be on this panel with you all, with these wahine toa.